You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
When you think of pirates, what image comes to mind? First, from a military perspective, it's the image of a fearless pirate embarking on thrilling adventures like in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, or famous characters like Luffy, Zorro, and Sanji from One Piece manga. However, unlike movies and comics, reality is much more brutal. Real-life pirates are armed criminals ready to do anything from kidnapping, physical torture, and psychological intimidation to murder for ransom. Just like in history, maritime crime remains a serious problem facing the world. Therefore, as the world's most powerful naval force, tasked with ensuring freedom of navigation across the oceans, the United States Navy has been entrusted with leading and coordinating operations against pirates. The question here is, how will they strategize and carry out this responsibility? Before we begin, if you find the content of this knowledge very useful and interesting, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to receive notifications as soon as the channel has the latest videos. Thank you for your support. Let's experience more interesting things together. Now, let's get to the main From ancient times, the sea has been a threat to maritime trade, especially during its golden age, from the mid-17th to the mid-18th. Today, although not as active as it is often portrayed in popular culture, pirates have never disappeared. They are also very different from the characters depicted in movies like Pirates of the Caribbean or One Piece. Today, pirates are considered a common enemy of humanity, and the issue of piracy is being regulated internationally by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas (UNC) of 1982. While the United States is not they generally respect and recognize this document as a set of applicable rules. International law shows that between the 1990s and 2010, the number of conflicts involving piracy globally tended to increase. Alone, only about piracy incidents were recorded. But by 2011, this number had increased to over. Modern maritime piracy is mainly concentrated in the seas around West Africa, the West Indian Ocean, and Southeast Asia. Compared to the previous century, piracy may have, but it remains a much more serious problem than the public realizes. According to estimates by Indian ship owners, $9 billion in damage to the global shipping industry annually. Not only rampant in the waters of Somalia and the Gulf of Aden, piracy has also been recorded off the western coast of Yemen and Saudi Arabia in the Red Sea, thousands of kilometers deep into the eastern and northern Indian Ocean, and even as far south as the coast of this is area too vast for even a single individual to handle. Large naval fleets can blockade, and therefore, anti-piracy operations by the U.S. Navy and its allies in the region will always be like a game of whack-a-mole, meaning always passive and attacking wherever they encounter pirates. Taking advantage of this, combined with knowing the starting points and directions of, they can proactively avoid and shift their attacks to unpatrolled areas. Besides the direct consequences of piracy, the local environment is also negatively impacted through overfishing, causing oil and chemical spills, or destroying marine ecosystems. This problem is so serious that the U.S. Navy has had to add the task of preventing ecological disasters caused by piracy, thus expanding the scope of its anti-piracy mission. Next, we will look at the specific measures the US Navy applies to deal with the problem of piracy. First and foremost, prevention is better than cure. So the first tactic they use is to educate sailors about piracy and how to prevent attacks. Specifically, they actively encourage commercial vessels to equip themselves with devices and prepare countermeasures against pirates, such as sturdy barbed wire to make boarding more difficult, and to make penetrating the internal structure a real challenge. At the same time, commercial vessels could also use water cannons to deter approaching pirate ships. Because pirate ships are usually small, they are quickly pushed back or capsized, as seen in the 2009 hijacking of the Masks, Alabama, which we will discuss in more detail later in this video. The crew suffered, let alone fatality, after the confrontation with the pirates, thanks to their extremely thorough training. Furthermore, the US Navy has a tradition of actively participating in international anti-piracy communication efforts, such as the Maritime Security Center in the Horn of Africa under the Strategic Command of the European Union and the International Maritime Bureau's Piracy Reporting Center. By contributing and becoming part of it from these data networks, the U Navy can gain more detailed insights into emerging piracy hotspots and coordinate timely and appropriate rapid response operations to supplement the Navy's intelligence network. The U may use helicopter, smaller, cheaper, and less risky unmanned aerial vehicles UAVs in monitoring locations where piracy frequently occurs. Furthermore, Navy strategists are also considering using UAVs to patrol areas inaccessible to ships. Even more advanced unmanned surface vessels or suicide UAVs could one day serve as effective methods for reconnaissance and suppression of piracy. Soon, unmanned surface ships and submarines will be deployed in with the deployment of these devices in areas where manned Navy ships currently cannot patrol, the effective operational range of pirates could be significantly reduced, as we have seen with the mere presence of warships and aircraft. Fighting alone is not enough to achieve the desired results in the campaign to prevent piracy. However, since confrontation with piracy is the US Navy has chosen an approach through specifically, they have trained the naval and coast guard forces of other countries in anti-piracy operations, thereby reducing the pressure of responsibility on themselves, as they have many other global missions and cannot always be at the forefront of combating piracy in hotspots around the world. Furthermore, the US Navy's involvement in this area is highly encouraged because it aligns with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which stipulates that nations must cooperate in anti-piracy operations. Prime example of this anti-piracy effort is the Joint Task Force 150, CTF-150, which missions in the Gulf of Aden and the Horn of Africa. This was once a dedicated unit of the US Navy but was later reassigned. The structure has become a multilateral force since the September 11 terrorist attacks. Since multilateral anti-piracy operations have involved many countries, even including those not on good terms with the United States, such as Pakistan, Russia, and, although not a joint task force, they and Washington have shared some unique experiences from cooperating against piracy in the Gulf of Aden, making this a case study, demonstrating the solidarity of two opposing nations against a common enemy. While pirates have no chance of resisting the modern naval forces, this does not prevent some daring pirates from confronting the US Navy and its ally. For example, Somali pirates often use tactics such as sending false distress signals, then using their small, high-speed vessels to quickly approach larger ships, and once they seize the ship, they demand. The exorbitant ransom demands are not the only issue. Pirates have gradually improved their tactics by using larger mother ships to expand their operational range. They also tend to rob smaller fishing boats and reorganize them to increase their numbers. Furthermore, you watching this video believe that today's pirates are merely brutes with rudimentary equipment from poor countries with low living standards. You'd better reconsider. Modern pirates are known to possess advanced combat methods, no different from professional armies. Specifically, they have planted spies in shipping companies to gather information about potential targets in addition, pirates are proficient in using sophisticated technologies such as radar, jeep, and stealth devices to detect threats. UV and its allies use the sonar system, and to be sure, they regularly intercept and inspect ships with such capabilities. Suspicious activity on March 18, 2006, 3 years before the famous rescue of Captain Phillips, involved 2 Navy ships from Joint Task Force 150, the Ticonderoga-class cruiser USS Capesa George, and the Albert-class destroyer USS Gonzales engaging pirates in international waters off Somalia. The Gonzales intercepted a large diesel-powered boat towing 2 smaller gasoline-powered boats, citing common characteristics of pirates. An SOS surveillance and search vessel approached from approximately 40 nautical miles away, tracking the suspects. Before the 2 Navy ships dispatched 2 specially trained landing teams to approach the suspicious vessel for investigation. However, this effort was unsuccessful as the pirates opened fire at close range, forcing them to retreat. The pirates then brazenly pursued the landing teams and other small arms at the Navy ships. Quick exchange of fire ensued, and it's not hard to imagine what happened next. What happened was when 3 dilapidated boats clashed with 2 warships of the world's most powerful navy. The pirates were overwhelmed in terms of force. At least 1 was killed and 12 were captured alive, while the Whitecaps suffered minor external damage and all crew members were safe. 4 years after the March 18, see the name given to the event we just described. Somali pirates once again daringly attacked a U.S. Navy ship on January 2010, USS Nicholas, of the Oliver Hazard Perry class, while on patrol in the area between the Kenyan and South Seas, encountered pirates. The result was predictable. Similar to the 2006 incident, the pirate ship was neutralized and 5 pirates were captured and brought back to the U.S. trial. 3 years after this incident, a famous event that helped the American public have a more realistic view of the current state of piracy, occurred the robbery. The U.S. Maersk Alabama incident, as the Captain Phillips incident, served as the basis for the 2013 film of the same name. The USS Maersk Alabama was attacked by 4 pirates sailing from the. After a conflict with the crew, the pirates decided to abandon their plan to hijack the ship and instead took Captain Phillips hostage on one of the lifeboats. 4 days, 3 snipers from the U. Navy Special Warfare Group, SAMSA, rescue operation and successfully killed 3 of the pirates with just 3 shots. The remaining pirate, Abdul Musi, was captured alive, detained in the United States. Captain Phillips later returned home safely, and no other crew members were injured. Although the incident did not cause any, it demonstrated the effective combat capabilities of the most elite soldiers of the military. However, from another perspective, it showed the Amazon, a threat the United States had not faced in centuries, was actually the first commercial ship registered in the U, flying the American flag and protected by law, to be attacked by pirates. This was a first since the early 1970s, when the country was waging war against barbarian pirates in the Mediterranean. Although when discussing modern-day piracy, the media tends to focus more. Piracy is also a serious problem in Southeast Asia, with the region witnessing a surge in piracy in the late 1990s and early 2000s, with over 200 incidents occurring annually. One of the most notable incidents occurred in October 1990, when a Japanese flagship, the Alondra Rainbow, was attacked by gunmen and knife-wielding pirates off the coast of. They then forced the crew onto a life raft and set them adrift at sea, eventually escaping. According to a report published in a journal, an estimated 41% of piracy incidents worldwide occurred in Southeast Asian waters between 1905 and 2013, resulting in the deaths of 136 sailors in the region. Furthermore, the International Maritime Bureau reported that South Asia accounted for 60% of global piracy incidents between 1993 and 20. However, some observers suggest the actual number of incidents may be even higher. A report from the IC Information Sharing Center, part of the Regional Cooperation Agreement on Combating Piracy and Armed Robbery against Ships in Asia, indicates a total of over 10 incidents related to piracy from. This is in addition to the fact that nearly a quarter of the world's trade passes through Southeast Asian shipping lanes, and there is a significant income gap in many countries in the region, making piracy a serious concern. This is an attractive option for many poor young people. Even low-paid local officials often participate in these activities by informing pirates about the routes of ships passing through local waters, and sometimes, if possible, they will not prosecute the captured pirates. Therefore, combating corruption at the national and local levels is an essential part of anti-piracy rations, something that the U.S. Navy can hardly intervene in. However, they can still operate in their own ways to combat piracy in Southeast Asian waters. The United States has become a member of the Regional Cooperation Agreement on Combating Piracy and Armed Robbery targeting ships in Asia, along with Australia and 20 other countries from Europe and Asia. U.S. participation in this organization includes providing its naval expertise to forces in the region so that they can better prepare to combat piracy in their waters. A notable part of this effort is exercises such as the Southeast Asian Cooperation and Training, which aims to prepare participating countries to combat piracy, illegal fishing, and illegal fishing simultaneously. These exercises emphasize the approach and tracking of vessels involved in violations of international maritime law in the Andaman Islands, Singapore, and the South China Sea. In 2019, the number of participating countries reached a record high since the exercise began 17 years prior. However, despite ongoing efforts to combat piracy, the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, UNCL, has not been able to comprehensively address this threat. For example, Article 1, piracy to personal gain, making it theoretically legal if committed for public or political purposes. Furthermore, the UNCL, piracy is occurring in international waters. The problem with this definition is that in the limited waters of Southeast Asia, pirates often operate in these areas, operating within the exclusive economic zone rather than international waters. Some loopholes in the UN have limited the ability of regional nations to hold pirates accountable for their crimes. Therefore, experts in international law and piracy argue that legal and institutional changes are needed to combat the rampant pirate gangs in South Asia. While the public in developed countries tends to view pirates as humorous and even admirable figures, far more real threat. Seafarers navigating some of the world's busiest shipping lanes to ensure freedom of the Navy will continue to play a leading role in global anti-piracy efforts, even though this is undoubtedly a difficult undertaking and unlikely to be as effective as expected, at least in the near future. What do you think the future Navy anti-piracy operations will look like? Will the emergence of unmanned devices help solve the problem? Or will the shortcomings in UNCL be resolved? New international document. Don't hesitate to leave your opinion in the comments below. And now, don't leave the video just yet, because the best part is yet to come. Music. Music. Later. Music.